Hey everyone, I'm Chanel. I want to talk a little bit more about some of the things that Tim and I put together for our discussion summary. First off, I loved actually getting to take the time and read every single student's post. It was really fascinating and exciting to hear another person's interpretation of the same prompts and readings. Because of my background in marine ecology, I don't tend to think of conservation issues in a typical terrestrial setting. And I've been really surprised by how creative and original some of the other ideas presented by students have been. I think that one of my favorite aspects of this program is simply how diverse our student body and our way of thinking is. So it's been really stimulating to get to summarize everyone's thoughts and opinions. One topic that stood out to me personally during this discussion was Brittany's post. I thought that her interpretation of large recreational areas such as Central Park in New York City as an unintentional corridor for migratory birds was so intuitive. I would have never thought to consider unplanned corridors during this discussion, but sometimes it's the unintentional actions that have the greater impacts. Avian species often benefit from terrestrial conservation. However, the aerial mobility does further complicate the conservation strategy more than it would for a terrestrial large land mammal, for example. Because of this, I think that it's great to acknowledge these challenges because for me, marine conservation often faces similar hardships, so I thought it was a really stimulating discussion. After considering Brittany's idea of unintentional corridors, I started thinking about how this concept could be applied to my community, to maybe other avian species in San Diego. One species in particular that's of interest here in San Diego is the highly endangered light-footed clapper rail. There's only 3 breeding centers in San Diego that are working on its species survival plan for these saltwater species and introducing captive bred birds back into the wild. I'm really fortunate because my employer, SeaWorld San Diego, and my certifying master's institution, San Diego Zoo, are 2 of the 3. So I've learned a lot about this from both sides. Habitat loss and fragmentation is the largest threat for these birds, so it's very similar to the topics that we've been discussing throughout this course. And coincidentally, most of the remaining habitat that's left for this species was set aside without conservation interest. Actually, Mission Bay Recreational Park, if you've ever gone to SeaWorld, it's in Mission Bay Park, has become one of the few sites where these birds are still found and acts as an important and yet completely unintentional corridor. I thought this would be a great example because thus far it seems to have an optimistic outlook. As a result, this recovery program for the clapper rail population is at its highest since the 1980s when censuses first began. It has increased from 142 pairs of birds to up to 500 today. To learn more about clapper rails, you can check out SeaWorld's Inside Conservation blog about our efforts. I've attached that link below this video. And then I've also included a link to a video about tracking efforts of wildlife corridors in cooperation with the City of San Diego and Recreational Department Open Space Division here in San Diego as well. So you guys can have the opportunity to learn a little bit more about all different types of wildlife conservation using corridors that are going on here in my community. Thanks so much for listening, guys. I hope you found this at least somewhat interesting and or stimulating, I guess. And have a great night, day.